Come on.
All right, everybody. Can you believe it? It's been a hiatus, but we are back. It's Trevor. It's Katie. It's FranchisOR Bust. And today, we could not be more excited. I don't mean to be crass, but this episode is going to be badass because we've got Scott Snyder from Badass Coffee. Scott, how you doing?
Aloha, everyone.
Good one, Trevor. That was excellent intro.
Thank you. Thank you. He's got the island vibes, and we're going to find out why. That we're talking to Scott, and we're going to learn all about something that I feel is obviously a topic that, I don't know, maybe 80 to 90% of Americans really enjoy, and that's coffee. And the folks that are listening to this podcast really enjoy, and that's franchising. So we're killing a lot of topics here that people love. So Scott, let's kind of get into it, man. Why don't you let us know, just give us a brief overview about Badass Coffee, how you got started, and then we're going to delve into the space of franchising and where you guys looking to go with that.
Sounds great. Well, it's fun because we call this a 31-year-old startup. Badass Coffee actually started on the Big Island of Hawaii in 1989. Quickly grew locally there with about 13 to 16 locations, stores, coffee carts and resorts, a few kiosks here and there, and grew rapidly over the first 6 years. In 1995, the brand was purchased by a company in Salt Lake City, and that's when it began to franchise. And a lot happened from 1995 until we acquired the brand assets in 2019. The brand had rapid growth nationally, stores from one end of the country to the other, pretty scattered, not with really what I would call a planned approach. Even 3 stores in Japan during that time period. Bringing the island vibe, bringing I would call it more of a commercial version of Hawaii to the mainland and other parts. But 2008 really took its toll on this brand. And with the recession from 2008 to 2011, the brand lost a lot of their stores. What it's always had has been a great name, a name that gets people in the door the first time. And what it's also always had is a great product that brings them back time and time again. What it was lacking, though, with the prior ownership was really an infrastructure based around franchise success. And as you know, Trevor, I mean, it's great to have the marketing appeal, but if you don't have the business side, it's not a sustainable business. And that really came forward during the recession. The brand at that time had just under 40 locations, and by the time the recession was over, they were cut in half and dwindling. I was brought in late 2017 as a consultant to help them understand why they hadn't sold a franchise during that time from 2008 to 2017. And what we quickly determined was exactly what I just said. Great name, great product, not a lot of support for the franchisees to be successful. Lack of training, lack of marketing, lack of business model, and really a challenge from an economic standpoint. So I had a unique opportunity to start as a consultant, moved into an interim CEO role with the prior owner. And eventually, as all that information was borne out and had an opportunity to present that to the prior owner, the best decision when the choices were let it slowly implode, or invest a certain amount of money to bring it back to relevancy, or allow a group to come in who's willing to make that investment to shore up the infrastructure side. And that's exactly what we did. We put together a group of investors and in 2019, acquired the assets and began putting our master plan together and launched in early 2020. just before COVID hit. So
Mm.
timing is awesome.
We all had big plans.
We all had
You know,
big plans.
we were starting 2020 with like, this is it. This is the year.
Yeah, and we did too. We launched with a new logo, new brand, new packaging, and a new store design. COVID hit, and believe it or not, we opened our first store with the new store design in June of 2020
Mhm.
when everything was shut down. But again, I think what this brand has always enjoyed is a very loyal, almost cult following. As I did some of my initial research as a consultant, I couldn't believe the brand recall values that consumers had, even if they'd only had one experience with the brand 10 years ago, 15 years ago. They remembered the name. And what they
Mhm.
also then remembered was the quality of the product. And so, if you got two of those three legs of that stool standing, our task was pretty focused on rebuilding the third leg of the stool. So, great brand, great following, cult following. And here we grow again. So, we call it our 31-year-old startup. And here we go.
You know, it's amazing that no matter who we speak to, kind of in the franchise space, one of the key fundamentals always is amazing product, attracting customers. But what is often, I wouldn't say misunderstood, but what sometimes can get put, toward the back burner, if you will, is just the vitality and the necessity of process, system. How do you grow? What's your unit economics? Where are we going to be? You know what I mean? Like the things that are truly going to take you from, yeah, this is a really cool thing and this is a really great, idea or a great product, to people want to buy this. And not people, consumers, I mean franchisees. Like franchisees want to buy this, they want to get involved, they feel supported. So talk to me about the steps you guys have taken then to kind of, what are some of the key linchpins in the process development and in the growth model, if you will, for how you're going to attract these franchisees and the things you develop to take it from, as you mentioned, great product, loyal fan base, really cool idea, to systematized, processed franchise brand.
Sure. And I want to kind of pile on your first comment there, Trevor. I think, to the credit of this industry, I think the franchise industry, and I've been around it, for 35 years in my career. The franchise industry has become much more sophisticated. The franchisees of today aren't in it just because they thought it would be fun. I mean, I like ice cream. That doesn't mean I should be an ice cream franchisee. I'd probably eat all my profits. Um,
I
but
know Katie would.
yeah,
Talk about an ice cream
wow,
connoisseur.
wow,
It gets crazy.
you
Yeah.
actually said that. So I think back when this brand was first franchising, I'm not sure. I can't validate that 100%, but I'm not sure that the level of sophistication and why you would buy a Badass Coffee of Hawaii franchise was the same. It didn't pass the same business validity test that franchisees today look for, that our business advisors, that our attorneys look for, all the things that, why would you get into business, right? You don't want to do it to lose money, even as much as you love the product. So I think those things, we may have gotten a little bit more of a hall pass back in 1995 on buying this brand. So to answer your bigger question, the first thing that we did was looked at what they had, right? And this is no disrespect to the prior ownership, but it was really lacking in the basic fundamentals of business management. We brought on some amazing leadership members of our team. Our our senior VP of marketing, Chris Ruskowski, has an amazing track record of agency and QSR experience. Our VP of operations has over 30 years of franchise consulting and training and development experience with Wendy's. And so we brought together a team of superstars that have all done it before. Now we've got a chance to do it together and build something really, really fantastic. Rarely, I think, as business people or as marketers, do you get a chance to take an established brand and wipe the slate clean, to start fresh. If you could build a brand from scratch, and you've already got the brand awareness, and you've already got the brand affinity with consumers. If you could do it from scratch, what would you do differently? That's really rare. And that's exactly what we're doing. So, to your point, Trevor, we did focus on processes. We focused on systems. We focused on technology. We focused on innovation. We focused on training. We focused on communication. We focused on tool sets. And more than anything, we started with focusing in on our business model. We happen to have the luxury of some very well known folks that are advisors to us and personal friends of mine that I've met over the years with some really high level experience with some very large brands in the coffee space that we leverage to put together a business model for this brand that takes into account its size, that takes into account the unique element of some percentage of a significant percentage of our coffee coming from Hawaii, which is a premium product, and leveraging that and balancing that against what are the economics that the in-store four-wall economics that work. So we've had a lot of help. We've had a lot of experience. We've brought all that together, but we knew going in there were some really big gaps. You know, the biggest challenge we faced right out of the gate was we knew going in we didn't have a uh, a consistent POS across the stores that were open at that time. We didn't have online ordering at that time. We didn't have a mobile ordering app. COVID hit, right? We had to scramble. So we really leveraged the experience, again, the experience of the team, the creative nature of the team, and the ability to do problem solving. And very quickly, within about 10 days, we had a QR code technology that became our online ordering platform and rolled that out to the stores that could take advantage of that and instantly overcame something as a technology challenge that we expected to cover later in that year. So, but it really is. I mean, there were more holes to fill than we had material to fill the holes with. But what we did was we took a look at what are the most important elements for our existing franchises to immediately realize the advantages of the new ownership and of the new management group. And we prioritize those, right? Starting from what's going to have the greatest impact, what's going to be in the franchisee's best interest first, and then start backfilling in terms of what would be expected from a national credible brand. What do you expect as a franchisee today? What do you expect to see when you get to meeting the team and you get to understand what that support system is all about? What are the table stakes that you must have? And that's where we began to focus.
I feel like there's two elements, especially in an emerging brand, and you guys you've been around a very long time,
And
but
yet
in
we're an
terms of
emerging brand.
huh?
And yet we are an emerging brand.
And yet you're an emerging brand. That's right. But in the emerging brand space, two things that are so very important that you were highlighting there is the need to be very franchisee centric. In other words, because your revenue stream is the franchisees, the success that they can bring, and the way that they can uh, highlight and bring to light the fact that these units are successful and they're doing well. So being franchisee centric in a wide variety of ways, but most of it boils down to support, like you're saying, better tech, better process, all those things, so that they are, they're supported and they have what they need. Um, but then, not only that side of the house really being franchisee centric, but also, like you mentioned, really focusing on what is the model, what is the plan? What is the plan here at the corporate level for how this is going to evolve? So right now you're kind of in the merging space, and given your experience in the world of franchising, what's the thought process, and kind of maybe what are some of the key elements, some of the key goals that you have for Badass Coffee as you look at the next 3 to 5 years when it comes to just getting out of the emerging space and getting into the full franchise kind of system, if you will, and fully realized franchise brand that you guys are looking to become?
It's a great question. I think, as I said before, we are a franchise first organization, right? We are neither capitalized nor are we really interested in becoming a corporate store brand. That's just a different mindset. We do have plans for for a corporate store near our headquarters for testing and innovation and things like that. But I think it starts with that. Know what you are, right? And then and have a very clear vision of where you're going with the brand. I think we have that. And then manage toward that. Well, how do we do that over a 5-year period? And I think one of the things that I've observed over the successful brands over the year, there's a difference between brands that just expand and those brands that, boy, there's an audience that just can't wait for them to come to their town, right? And I think that's more of the growth plan that we want to have. And I think you only achieve that if you find other ways to introduce that brand, right? One of the things, back to my earlier comment about research, as I would dive into people that said that they knew the brand, it was amazing to me. They would say, "Oh my gosh, we had our honeymoon in Hawaii and we visited the stores in Maui, or we had a family vacation in Miramar Beach, and I'll never forget it. We went there every day." Or my husband was in the military in Norfolk, Virginia, and we went to the badass store right down the street in Virginia Beach. There was something that people always remembered. And so when you start talking about bringing a badass coffee to your town, anywhere USA, they go, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to have a badass. Do you remember when?" Right? And so I think that you see that with brands. I was part of when Chipotle expanded. I was part of when Jimmy John's expanded nationally. There was a hunger, there was pent up demand for that brand in your town, much like we see today with brands like In-N-Out Burger, things like that. When it goes, the lines around the block for weeks, months, right? So part of our growth strategy is first and foremost being a franchise first brand, but it's also deploying a multi-channel or an omni-channel approach to bringing the brand out, making sure that people are aware. So if you're following us at all, you see us on social media. If you're following us at all, you see the online store that's advertised, right? The ability to bring product into places where there aren't stores. We are exploring other channels in terms of wholesale and subscriptions and hospitality, limited product. Not all the benefits and not all of the experience. This is an experiential brand when you walk into our stores, but to get them introduced, to get them a little taste of that drives demand. That drives demand for it. Well, it drives interest, which drives demand for franchises, which is what we're focused on. So, man, I love your product. We were on vacation in Naples. Got back, I bought some of your product online. Next thing I know, I find, I'm having that and I'm looking around saying, we need a badass coffee. We need a badass coffee here in, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, whatever. Right. And that's how it starts. And so that omni-channel approach does two things for us. Number one, it gets the brand out there. It develops a relationship with consumers as to what this brand stands for, the quality, the name, the lore, our heritage, our Hawaiian heritage, the donkeys, bringing the beans down the volcanic slopes of the Big Island, right? Bringing them down. That story is being told, and it sets the stage. And you start to build an audience. You start to build a customer base in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, of other people that are buying that coffee. Guess what happens when you announce that we've got a new franchisee there, and there's a badass coffee of Hawaii coming to Harrisburg? Kind of like the In-N-Out Burger, right? So that's really that's part of the 5-year plan. I hate to put numbers to how many stores we're targeting, but certainly our shareholders want to know that. We've published a number of 150 stores in the next 4 years. I think that's very doable. I think it's might even be conservative, but it all stems from brand awareness and a brand affinity, and then demand for the product. Demand for the product creates franchise opportunities.
It's interesting. When you were mentioning the attraction, to the brand. It made me think of what Don Draper said when he said, "What is advertising?" He said, "Advertising is happiness.
It is.
It's
Yeah.
making people feel happy. It's making people feel good." And when you're projecting the brand out there, that's really what you're selling. You're selling, hey, this is a feeling. This is fun. You like it. You enjoyed. You went on vacation. You went to Badass Coffee. You enjoyed it. So that's what we're going to keep giving you. We're going to giving you more of that enjoyment.
I'll tell you the other part of that too, Trevor, is and the enjoyment comes from what you get out of it, right? And I think for 31 years, people have had their own interpretation of what this brand is. Our true story, the legend of the donkeys, is the legend I just shared. But deep down, there's a little badass in everybody, right? And coffee is fuel, right? So there is a dual meaning, right? We will always share the first thing you see when you walk into the store is the badass legend, right? And you'll read that story about the donkeys. But how many other coffee brands do you see where people are walking around with that brand on a t-shirt or on a hat, right? Maybe on a mug or something in the office. But people love there's a little inner badass, and people love to think of themselves as being pretty badass. You're a badass if you get up with your kids in the morning, make them breakfast, and walk them to the bus. You're a badass if you do great things in your community, and you don't really make a big deal about that. That makes you a badass. So being a badass, it does have a dual meaning, and I think merchandise is a big part of that. People want a place to call home, and they want to subtly identify themselves as being a badass, and that's part of our brand too. So that just adds to the mystique. That adds to the draw and demand. And it's fun when you're kind of the first one in your area who's got our bag of badass coffee on your countertop, and you got people they're going to laugh and they're going to giggle at the name, and then I've got an advocate there that's talking about how great that coffee is. Yes, and I am a badass because I buy that. That's pretty
Love
cool.
that. The other day, Katie drank some badass coffee and beat me at arm wrestling. So
Ah,
I mean,
that
talk
shows,
about fuel.
yeah, that shows you right there. That fuel that powered her. I mean, she just
Yeah.
almost snapped my wrist off. But no, but no, Scott. I mean, seriously, that's everything you're surmising there is so just it's so important to business and to all businesses. And like you say, at the end of the day, the purpose and kind of the goals that you guys have, your purposes you have, are centered around growth and centered around your business and how it's going to thrive, and how your franchisees are not only just going to be attracted to, okay, yeah, this is great, we love the coffee, we love the product, but we also love the business itself, we love the product itself, and we're really going to succeed. So talk maybe just a little bit about kind of the attraction. We know the franchisees love it from a product standpoint, they love it from a happiness standpoint and what they see, but maybe from like a unit economic standpoint. And also because obviously anybody listening to this is got some understanding of franchising probably. So
sure.
from that unit economic side, and also from the maybe the goals that you guys have between uh if a franchisee would you all be more inclined to have a franchisee that's multi-unit, or maybe owns an entire state or an entire region? What's your model there? And then kind of what's the kind of the, I don't know, the unit business model for the franchisees to be attracted to?
Sure. There's a lot of questions in there, Trevor. I think first and foremost, I think the traction starts with your first question about what is the attraction. I think coffee's hot right now. I think two of the businesses that did really well during COVID were pizza and coffee. Right.
Mhm.
Never in my wildest dreams did I think we would be delivering coffee through third party delivery services.
And booze,
And
pizza, coffee,
booze,
booze.
yep.
Yeah,
That
big COVID hits,
that was a
all
big
three.
one. That was a big one. I didn't personally take part in that part too much, but anyway, so I think so. Coffee's really hot, and so from a franchising opportunity right now, I don't know that there are a lot of kind of national coffee brands that aren't either A, overly saturated, or B, are more regional brands that, getting something outside of that region is going to have the same sort of attraction. Secondly, within the coffee industry, and I'm not a coffee snob by any stretch, and I know enough to be dangerous. But I know I'm all about experience, and I'm an experiential consumer. So I like to go into a store, whether it's a retail store or a coffee shop, and kind of take stock of what the vibe is. And I think when you walk into a Badass Coffee of Hawaii, it's unlike anything else that's in the market right now. You go to your lion's share of the coffee shops that we all know about, and pick your brand, right? They kind of generally fall into two categories: very, very dark and industrial metals and dark woods, or quite the opposite, almost like a surgical suite, very light and stainless steel and white everywhere, And when you walk into a Badass Coffee, it's not a sensory overload by any stretch. It's comforting. Greens and blues represent land and sea for us. There's authentic Hawaii. There's vintage Hawaii. There's donkeys, right? That's our heritage. But it's comforting, and it's an escape. And if you've been to Hawaii before, you'll appreciate it, because it's not the Hawaii we grew up with, thinking that it was all hula girls and Hawaii 5-0. It's actually authentic Hawaii. We didn't try to over commercialize it. If you've never been to Hawaii before, it's escaping to Hawaii every day or whenever you go, right? So we think that that's part of the attraction too. How do you stand out in a crowded field of coffee? Well, we stand out because we're serving Hawaiian coffee. We serve other international coffees too. But where can you get the selection of Hawaiian coffees, which is viewed as premium, viewed as exotic, right? So we're selling Hawaiian coffee. We've got a great name that people want to wear. We've got an environment that's unlike anything that you've ever seen, and yet very comfortable. All those things separate us, and I think that's a big attraction. To answer the next question that you had from a model standpoint, we follow basic model guidelines for unit 4-wall unit economics. We make sure that the norms, right? There's going to be some brands that are going to do better on labor because they don't have a cafe to manage. There are going to be some brands that are going to do better on cost of goods because they've got a mermaid and they're buying coffee cheaper than everybody else on the planet, right? So their unit economics are going to be a little bit better on cost of goods. So what you will find in our model is that it's right there in the norms, right? And the interesting thing about our brand is we have locations without drive-throughs that are in destination locations, like I said, Naples and Miramar Beach and Maui, and their unit economics are going to be different than one, say, in Lexington, Kentucky, across from the campus of University of Kentucky, right? Their sales are going to be different. And so what we've done is we've created 6 different business models that address for an inline store without a drive-through, address as a drive-through store with a full cafe, address a model if you're going to have a heavy merchandise sale, which has a lower margin but higher transactions, so lower labor, higher per transaction number, those sorts of things. And most recently, we've introduced a kiosk model and a double drive-through with no cafe at all. So I think the trick there, Trevor, is making sure that your model reaches within the norms of what you would characterize as a steady state, predictable model, business model. The secret sauce that you add as a business person, and which is why we look for that as a qualification in people, is your ability to take that one step further. How can you do what we've said, assuming a limited experience, you can do better in these areas either because of your background, or you can do better in these areas because you're managing costs, you're managing labor to a transaction per labor hour, as opposed to just saying flat out, here's my percentage of labor. So there's lots of different things that you can do. And we work with you as your business partner and as your business consultant to say, here's the model that you're shooting for. Now, how can we do it better? Right. So I hope that answers the question on the business model.
It certainly does. And what we've heard and what we've learned is you guys are been around forever. Amazing product, coupling that amazing product with years and years of franchise experience. Now really morphing into, hey, we've got a plan, we've got the model, we've got the backing and the know-how to really grow. And what else do you need? You guys are set up perfectly for success as you move forward. And Scott, this has been super informative, very helpful. Appreciate you. Any final words that you've got about Badass Coffee before? Now, one thing I'll say, I clearly don't drink enough Badass Coffee because this guy's got a beautiful full head of hair. And then when you look at me, it's got to be the coffee. That's the only explanation.
Coffee is a healthy product. I guess the only other thing I would add is, we're starting to see the fruits of our labor. We're going to open about 25 new stores this year, which will more than double our current store count. What we're most proud of is, like I said, we started from scratch. We use the phrase a lot during the first year. We were driving the car while we were building it, but we're starting to see the fruits of that now. Our current FDD that was just released, saw an 80% increase in average unit volume across our stores. Incredible,
Yeah.
And so we're not there yet. But what I'm most proud of is that's with the stores we already had. Those were the stores that we acquired. So as our new stores come online, and we make that final transition, I think this is it's a really exciting brand. It's a lot of fun. Who doesn't love coffee, and who doesn't want to be a badass? And so, we'd love to, if you're a badass, we'd love to talk to you.
Fantastic. If you're ever sitting there having the thought that I want to be a badass, you just got to call Scott, and that's it. And that's where we'll leave it. This has been fantastic. Scott, on behalf of Katie and I and FranchisOR Bust, we appreciate you. We'll leave it at that.
Mahalo, Katie.
Let's go be
Mahalo,
badasses.
Trevor.
Mahalo.
Thank you.
Aloha, everyone.
Come on.